Have you ever realised you weren't connecting with someone in a conversation because you hadn't clarified what you both meant by the key terms? This can easily happen in conversations about leadership, especially between people from different cultures. In this two-part presentation, we will explore 6 important leadership concepts. Having a shared understanding of these concepts will help us to learn more about how to engage in leadership in a global development context. The first concept we need to grasp is that leadership is not the same as authority. We have already defined leadership as a process of influence that delivers 3 outcomes. The first being direction, that is, a shared vision of where we need to head. The second being alignment, that is, ensuring that all the resources that we have are working in a coordinated manner to achieve our shared vision. And the third being commitment, that is, people are personally committed to achieve the shared vision. Authority, however, is the power or right to control, command, or determine. A CEO of an organisation has authority by virtue of their position, but simply holding this position does not necessarily mean they engage in leadership as we have defined it. Professor Ron Hafitz, a leading thinker in adaptive leadership, stresses this point. There is a big difference between authority and leadership. Many people in positions of authority don't exercise leadership. Many people exercise leadership without much authority, sometimes without any. Can you think of someone who's engaged in leadership without much or any authority? One example that springs to my mind is Malala Yousafzai, a brave Pakistani activist for female education and the youngest ever Nobel Prize laureate. Her story is remarkable. As a schoolgirl, she stood up for the rights of girls in Pakistan to be educated despite risks to her safety and refused to be intimidated after being assaulted by the Taliban. Her inspiring leadership in this area has been done with little, if any, authority. The second concept we need to explore is that leadership is not the same as management. Whilst leadership is focused on clarifying the direction, aligning resources, and motivating people, management is focused on planning and budgeting, organising and staffing, and controlling and problem solving. Leadership behaviours are needed when we need to initiate or navigate through change. Management behaviours are needed when we want to make the organisation or project run more efficiently. Professor John Cotter is a thought leader on this topic. He stated that managers promote stability while leaders press for change, and only organisations that embrace both sides of that contradiction can thrive in turbulent times. Cotter reminds us that organisations in the 21st century need to foster leader-managers. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on this question. Are you currently a leader-manager? That is, someone who knows when to engage in leadership or management and has the ability and confidence to excel at either role. Whilst Cotter's distinction between leadership and management behaviours is useful, I believe that the 2 sets of behaviours overlap. For example, aligning resources to a shared vision is part of Cotter's definition of leadership, but it's also organising, which is part of his definition of management. Similarly, if we look at some models of leadership, such as Susan Cogler-Hill's conceptual model of team leadership, we find that it includes a mix of leadership and management behaviours. In this model, for example, we could categorise activities such as monitoring and structuring for results as management, while activities such as goal focusing and building commitment align with our definition of leadership. So, developing leaders should focus on building leadership and management skills. Management skills of particular value for leaders would include project management, budgeting, time management, and various analysis and problem-solving techniques. The third concept is that all leaders need power to exercise influence. We can define power simply as the potential to exert influence. There are many forms of power. We can group these into 2 categories. The first is position power, which is the potential for influence associated with a specific position in an organisation or institution. Politicians, for example, have this form of power. The second is personal power, which is the potential to influence associated with a leader's expertise, credibility, likability, or relationships. Respected and knowledgeable community elders have personal power. Please take a moment to consider your current bases of power. Where does your potential for influence flow from? Developing leaders need to think about what reservoirs of power they have, which ones can be enhanced, and how they can do this in an ethical manner. In the second part of this presentation, we will explore 3 more foundation concepts to help us have a clear conversation about leadership in the global development sector. Before moving on to the next presentation, please take a moment to reflect on these 3 questions. 1. Are you comfortable with the concept that it is possible to engage in leadership without authority? 2. Are you already a competent leader-manager or focused on becoming one? 3. Are you comfortable with the view that you must have some form of power in order to exert influence, that is, personal or position power, and that developing leaders need to consciously build their reservoirs of power? I hope some of these concepts provide you with food for thought and perhaps challenge your existing views about leadership. Being open to new ideas is one of the distinguishing characteristics associated with effective change leaders.